Amidst ruins of memories and promises of the sea, a woman seeks to silence her past in Seabridge. When a familiar voice resurfaces from an old telephone, worlds intertwine unexpectedly. Through shared pain, Evelyn discovers that some stories do not end. They just change voices to continue being told. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The wind from Seabridge's sea had a scent that mixed salt, memory, and promise. It was there that Evelyn Carraway decided to start over. After 2 years surrounded by silence, she needed a place where the past had no voice. She sold the house, stored the few memories of her husband in a wooden box, and accepted the first job that appeared, an administrative assistant at a charity foundation called Harbour Light. The name sounded ironic to her. She felt anything but enlightened. Evelyn was 35 years old and her green eyes no longer sparkled as they once did. Her brown hair, which Nathan had always complimented, was now shorter, as if she had cut not only the strands, but also the memories tied to them. Her delicate hands, with long fingers that used to dance over the keys of a piano, now remained restless, always looking for something to do, as if constant movement could distract her from the stillness inside her. The small wooden house she rented was a few meters from the beach. It was simple, with light-coloured walls and a porch facing the ocean. In the morning, the sun rose right in front of her, like a daily promise that, somehow, life went on. The Harbour Light building was old, with large windows and the smell of old paper. On the first morning, the foundation's director, Dr. Lucian Ward, greeted her with a discreet smile and eyes that seemed to carry too many stories. "Welcome, Evelyn. Here we deal with scars. Some visible, others not so much." She simply nodded. He didn't ask anything about her past, and that, in itself, was already a relief. Lucian Ward was 42 years old, tall, with broad shoulders and a posture that conveyed confidence. His blue eyes, framed by small expression lines, always seemed to observe a little beyond what was in front of him. There was a serenity about him that contrasted with the chaotic world outside. His hands, when handling documents or serving coffee, made precise and gentle gestures. His office was organised, with shelves full of books, some modest trophies from charity races, and a single photograph in a silver frame, that of a woman smiling at the camera, with the sea in the background. Evelyn noticed the wedding ring he still wore on his left finger, and immediately recognised the sign. He, too, knew loss. Lucian had something calm about him, a presence that demanded nothing. They worked in silence most of the time. He spent his days reviewing reports and organising donations while Evelyn typed correspondence and coordinated schedules. The sound of his footsteps down the hallway became part of the new rhythm of her life, safe, predictable, almost comforting. In the following weeks, Evelyn learned more about Harbour Light. The foundation helped fishing families in distress, provided scholarships to coastal community children, and maintained a small support centre for the elderly. It was a discreet work, without big announcements or pompous ceremonies. "We prefer that the impact speaks for itself," Lucian explained one afternoon as they finished preparing baskets for distribution. In her lonely nights, Evelyn thought of Nathan. Her husband had been a therapist, dedicated to helping people overcome traumas and losses. Ironically, it was he who left first, leaving her with a void that no therapy seemed to fill. She remembered his smile, his calm voice, and the way his eyes closed when he laughed at something truly funny. Nathan had been her safe harbour since college, the place where she could always be herself, without masks or explanations. Sometimes in the silence of the new house, she would take out the wooden box where she kept his memories, a wristwatch that still worked, a few notes written on yellowed paper, travel photos, small fragments of a life that seemed to have happened in another existence. On one of those nights, she found a letter from her father, Howard Carraway. He was a simple man, a carpenter by trade and a poet at heart. His words always had a special way of comforting her. "Daughter, Wood teaches us that cracks do not mean the end. They are just places where the light enters differently. Evelyn fell asleep with the letter on her chest, feeling for the first time that maybe, just maybe, she could find some meaning in the fracture that had opened in her life. But on a rainy afternoon, when the wind began to pound the windows, fate decided to remind Evelyn that some voices cannot be silenced. Lucian's phone rang on the table. She was next to him, organising documents, when she heard, "Evie, are you there?" The world stopped. The air escaped her lungs. The voice, that timbre, that way of saying the nickname, was Nathan's, her deceased husband. A chill ran down her spine, and for a moment she felt as if she were floating, disconnected from reality. The phone fell from Lucian's hand as he suddenly stood up. "Evelyn, are you okay?" But she was already pale, trembling. Her fingers clutched the edge of the table as if it were the only anchor in a suddenly unstable world. "Where did you get this phone?" she asked, her voice choked. Lucian hesitated. "It's old, a device that remained here from the time of the Foundation's initial project." "That voice," she interrupted him. "It was his voice, my husband's." Lucian looked at her in silence. In his eyes, there was something beyond surprise, a painful recognition. "Nathan Hale," he said, as if pronouncing a sacred name. Evelyn stared at him, astonished. "You knew him?" Lucian took a deep breath and gestured for her to sit. "I did. We worked together for years. He was more than a colleague. He was my friend." Those words were both a blow and a comfort at the same time. Nathan, always him, always present. The room seemed to spin around Evelyn. How was it possible that in a different city, in a job chosen almost at random, she had found someone who knew Nathan? Fate had an odd, and sometimes cruel, sense of humour. Lucian then told her about the Harbour Voice, the project they had created to record messages of comfort and hope for people suffering losses. It was his dream, Evelyn. He believed that the voice could cross time, that love never died. It just changed frequency. She brought her hands to her face, crying silently. "He never told me about this." "He was planning to tell you," Lucian said softly. "But the accident happened first." In the days that followed, Evelyn couldn't sleep. Nathan's voice echoed in her mind as if he were still on the phone. She walked along the beach in the early hours of the morning, when the mist still covered the sand, feeling as if she were in a limbo between worlds, neither fully trapped in the past nor free for the future. She sought out Lucian early in the morning and asked to hear it again. He hesitated, but agreed. He turned on the device, adjusted the sound, and there it was, the recording. "Evie, if one day this voice reaches you, it means love never stopped speaking." Evelyn broke down in tears. Lucian hugged her without saying a word. Sometimes silence is the only possible prayer. In that embrace there was an understanding that went beyond words. He knew her pain because he also carried his own. After that day she wanted to know everything about the project. She spent hours listening to Nathan's old recordings, many of them tests, others messages of comfort for strangers. In every word there were traces of him, the calm, the faith, the serene way of seeing beauty even in pain. And somehow, listening to that rekindled something in her. "It was Claire's idea, actually," Lucian said one afternoon while they had tea in the Foundation's small cafeteria. "My wife. She believed that leaving messages of love was a way to overcome time and distance." His eyes drifted to the window. "When she got sick, she started recording little things for me. Advice, memories, jokes. After she was gone, those recordings were what kept me standing." "Is that how you met Nathan?" Evelyn asked, feeling a strange connection forming. "Yes. I was so immersed in my pain that I could barely function. A friend recommended therapy with him. Nathan had this ability to listen without judgment, to find light in the darkest corners." Lucian smiled slightly. "One day I told him about Claire's recordings. His eyes lit up. He said we could turn that idea into something bigger, something that would help others not feel so alone in their loss. Lucian and Evelyn began working side by side to restore the harbour voice system. "Maybe we can finish what he started," she said, with a sparkle she hadn't seen in years. "Help others not feel alone." Lucian smiled. "Nathan would be proud of you." Time passed, and the cold office of the foundation came to life. New messages began to be recorded, new beneficiaries emerged. Evelyn started playing the piano again on empty afternoons, something she hadn't done since the funeral. Lucian, always patient, listened from the hallway, leaning against the wall with a coffee in his hands. One night, while they were reviewing files, Evelyn asked, "Why did you keep this, Lucian? Why did you never look for me?" He looked down, ashamed. "I thought you weren't ready, and maybe... I wasn't either. I lost my wife, Claire, 6 years before I met Nathan. He was the one who kept me going. When he died, I went silent again." Evelyn watched him for a moment. "Then maybe that's what we do here. We learn to speak again." Their friendship blossomed slowly, almost shyly. There was a sacred respect for the past between them. Neither tried to erase what came before. It was as if Nathan was still there, uniting the two broken halves he had left behind. In the spring, when wildflowers took over the slopes surrounding the small coastal town, Lucian invited Evelyn for lunch at his house, an old 2-story building with a garden that descended almost to touch the sea. She accepted, feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation that she had not experienced for a long time. The table was set on the porch with a white cloth and a vase of wildflowers. Lucian cooked well, another talent Claire had taught him. As they ate, discussing plans to expand the project, Evelyn felt a strange peace. It wasn't the absence of pain, but a different way of carrying it, as if now the weight was shared, divided between 2 pairs of shoulders. On the anniversary of Nathan's death, Lucian took Evelyn to Eagle's Bend Bridge, where the accident had happened. The sky was golden, the wind calm. He placed a small box in her hands. Inside was the original recording, the last voice file from Nathan, the one that had never been played. Evelyn hesitated but pressed play. "Evie, if you're hearing this, promise me one thing. Don't build a shrine out of my absence. Build a life. Love again. Let someone hold your hand when the nights feel too long. That's how I'll know you heard me." She fell to her knees, sobbing, and Lucian knelt beside her. Without saying anything, he just wrapped her in his arms, letting her tears mix with the breeze. In that moment, something changed between them. It wasn't the end of the pain, but the beginning of something different, something that didn't erase the past, but allowed for a view forward. In the months that followed, life began to return. First in small gestures, the occasional laugh, shared coffee, the gaze that lasted a little longer than necessary. Lucian didn't try to take Nathan's place. He simply remained there, steady, present. And so in time, love found another home. On an autumn Sunday, as they walked along the beach, their hands touched. Neither pulled away, their fingers intertwined naturally as if they had always belonged to each other. "I still miss him every day," Evelyn confessed, watching the horizon. "I know," Lucian replied, squeezing her hand gently. "And that's okay. Love doesn't have to be exclusive to be true." The first kiss came weeks later, under the dim light of a lamp on the deck of Lucian's house. It was gentle, cautious, full of silent questions and whispered answers. When they parted, both had tears in their eyes, not from sadness, but from recognition. Recognition that life, despite all the losses, insists on offering new beginnings. 5 years later, the white gate of the house in Seabridge opened to a new scene. In the garden, a golden-haired girl was running after a dog while Evelyn and Lucian watched her from the porch. Her name was Clara, a name chosen by Evelyn in honor of his mother, Claire. "She has your smile," said Lucian, laughing. "And his heart," replied Evelyn, looking at the sky, where the wind still blew with the same scent of the sea and hope. The Harbour Voice project had grown, turning into a national network of support for people facing grief. Evelyn had returned to teaching piano, finding joy in teaching children in the community. Lucian continued to run the foundation, but now with renewed purpose. On the living room wall, there were 3 photographs in identical frames. Nathan smiling on a mountain, Claire on the beach looking at the horizon, and Evelyn and Lucian with little Clara between them. Past and present, side by side without competition or resentment. Every night before going to sleep, she would put the old cell phone in a drawer and be grateful for the day it had rung. It wasn't a ghost that had returned, it was a bridge. Nathan's voice hadn't come to bind her to the past, but to free her for the future. And in the silence of that house full of life sometimes, the gentle echo of a memory seemed to whisper between the walls. Still here. And she smiled, knowing that she was, finally, where love continues to speak. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.